right, everyone. Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us for the third Forbes School of Business and Technology Colloquium of the 2021 Colloquia series, in which we will discuss how to give your students quality feedback in less time. I would like to welcome our presenter, Dr. James Moore, lead faculty in the Department of Organizational Studies within the Forbes School of Business and Technology. Since this webinar is pre-recorded, you are highly encouraged to post freely and actively in the chat, as our speaker is obviously in the room and is open to answer questions and converse with you live and in real time. There will also be several times during the presentation in which we will pause as well, so you can again interact with Dr. Moore directly. And now please enjoy this presentation. And again, your participation is highly encouraged.
This presentation will cover quality feedback in less time. I'm Dr. James C. Moore, and I hope you enjoy these tactics. There are three areas that will be covered: classroom responses, Gradebook, and Waypoint. I will show you an old perspective and a new tactic for each of these three. The main tool that I will utilize is Phrase Express. I will then tie it into the Waypoint database and show you the power of these two tools when combined. Let's get started. Phrase Express is a powerful tool. I'm going to show you how it works in the first area, which is the classroom. And it's going to be in the area of announcements. This is one that I post at the beginning of my course to let the students know how I operate. Now, most of us probably have a place where we can go, where we grab an announcement from a Word document, perhaps we highlight it, and then we copy and paste it, and then we take it over to our classroom, and we post this in our classroom after having to locate it. What Phrase Express does is it allows you to build a database of comments so that you can use a keystroke and put those in a matter of seconds without having to go through those steps. That is the power of Phrase Express, and it's a great tool when you're typing something that's repetitive, or students have a question that they ask a lot, or announcements or things you do on a regular basis. Greetings and welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining. I'd like to share a few tips with you. This is something that I utilize in my classroom, and it works well for me. I just want to share it. That by no means am I saying this is the only way to do things. This is just a way to do things. And one of the first things I'm going to share with you is the announcements. As I spoke before, a lot of times we go and we have, maybe you have a 20 or 30 page document where you surf through and you find whatever it is that you'd like to paste or post. I use Phrase Express because you build all of that into a database, and with a couple of keystrokes, you can drop in a quick announcement. One of the questions that I get from my students is, what time in the course of the day, what time are assignments late? So I have a little code that I put in, and if I put it in properly, it looks like I had a little typo there. I'll use a different code. Okay, I'm going to use this one because it's one that I put in. Wow. Okay, so what's going on right now? There's one downside to Phrase Express, and I'll explain that. Sometimes when you copied and pasted something into the memory of your clipboard, Phrase Express picks up on that, and that's okay. A lot of times if you do another cut and paste, which now, of course, it's not doing for me. So I'll explain a little bit better. What Phrase Express does is, and I'll open it up, it does a database, and it allows you to keep a lot of your codes, or all of your codes that you put in a specific spot. So you can see here that I have the different codes that we utilize. If we look at I use hashtag, and that's just me. It allows you to populate a space with that phrase after you input this code. And at the end of the demonstration, or at the end of the video, I'll actually go through and show you how to build those. And that'll also give me some time to clear my memory so that Phrase Express is not picking up on the prior codes that I put in. We'll see if it's cleared here. Okay, so I'll clear it during the next segment. And then at the end, we have 3 spots. At the end, I'll go through and show you how it's set up. Stephanie, if you'd be so kind, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to you so we can play more of the video. And then as it goes, I'll go ahead and clear the memory for Phrase Express. The second area that I'd like to share with you is the Gradebook. When we utilize the Gradebook, quite often each week, we are going to put the same comments in as we did the week prior. What Phrase Express does is allows us to create a database of those comments and add those comments in as we see fit and then tailor them to the needs of the students. So, for instance, in this particular course, we have a test student set up. I'm going to go into the comment area. In SpeedGrader, we have the option to type a response. Now we can go into our Word document as we did before, highlight, copy, paste, and that's okay, except if we have a lot of comments, in the case of having a lot of comments, we then have to go back and locate those comments and surf through. Phrase Express takes that out. So I can go through and make my rubric adjustments for whatever the student has scored, and then because I have a database of responses that I have already built, I can put those comments in a matter of keystrokes and then put the student's name in and tailor them any way that we need. And that entry is done that quickly. Okay, so I was able to clear out the memory for Phrase Express. So we are good to go. I'm going to go back to the first entry that I was attempting to put for you. And it is not doing it. I'll show you on a Word document. Okay, so I did a test here. Okay, this particular entry is something that I use for students when I deal with Turnitin issues. Rather than going and locating this and then coming back and cutting and pasting or all those things or retyping each time, I have that set in my database. So I have a different one for when it's an iRoad issue versus when the student actually fails the assignment. So I have two of them and I have several of these comments. And as you go on, you're gonna kind of pick up on what your coding is. You'll come up with your own naming convention and so on and so forth. So what I want to do is I'm going to show you in the Gradebook. For instance, we have a project in the BUS 365 course called the Bricoleur project. And of course, this will be the one day that technology does not change everything. So, okay, so in this instance, I got a different code to come up. But my point is that when you utilize Phrase Express, it saves you from having to go and hunt down all of these things. And in the next segment, you're going to see how that also ties in with utilizing Phrase Express in conjunction with Waypoint and the comments that you can put into Waypoint as well. And the presentation on this is going to be kind of short. It's only about 7 minutes long, all three segments, so that I can show you some of these and we can kind of toy around with them. I can also answer some questions. And Stephanie, while you bring this back up, did you happen to notice if we have any questions in the chat queue?
Yes. Phrase Express, is that a separate software outside of Canvas?
It is, and you'll have to go to BTS to get it installed if you're using your personal your work laptop versus your personal laptop. It takes 90 seconds to get it installed. No one's ever given me any trouble for it. I've been using it since 2010. So it's a real lightweight on the memory type project. Normally it works smoothly. Today it decided it's going to be a little difficult, but we'll work through it. And I'll answer some more questions after this last segment.
Okay, just one quick one. Do you have
Sure.
to be in HTML mode for it to work?
No. Now that's a great question. You don't have to be in HTML mode for it to work, but the cool thing about Phrase Express in comparison to other text expanders, a lot of other text expanders only expand text, and it's in black and white font, no options. Phrase Express will let you do regular text, HTML, and it will also let you do images. So that's really nifty, something you don't get in some of the others, especially ones that are designed for, like, say, for instance, just data entry. And I've worked with ones that do just text and nothing but text. You can't change the colors. Okay, and then I see here a message from Claudia. I'm teaching my first class and I would love to collect comments. Is there anywhere? And I can only see part of that.
Is there anywhere I can get common comments?
Yes, I tell you what I'll do. For anybody who's interested, if after this seminar you send me an email, I will send you my database along with instructions how to install it into your Phrase Express if you're interested. You have to send me an email. I'll do that, and then it'll have 4 or 5 steps, and then you can utilize that. There'll be my comments. You'll have to tweak them and tailor them, but it'll work. Of course, my pleasure. Area 3 is Waypoint. Waypoint requires us to put in comments in the body of our papers. Most of us are relatively well adept at that. But the cool feature of Phrase Express when you combine it with Waypoint is that you can utilize the same set of keystrokes and your database in Phrase Express to put in your summation comments. I have a set of comments that I have databased already. I'll give you an example of one here. Phrase Express allows me to populate those comments near immediately. I can now go in the same instance and tailor those comments for my students. If there's anything I need to tweak, I can erase, type, add, whatever the case is, I can edit from here. This is a really powerful tool when you're responding to several students each week. Another really cool advantage of Waypoint, and I'm not going to go a lot into detail on this because most of us probably know how to do this, but if you pre-build your comments in Waypoint so that you have a typed code within there with certain words that you key off of, for instance, if someone needs to tighten up their thesis, if you've pre-built the comments, you can actually get those in much quicker. Waypoint will search those files that they have built in and pull up the things that are relevant to or attached to the keyword that you put in. So in this instance, if I have a student that has a thesis that needs a little bit of work, or perhaps in this scenario where the student may need to start a thesis in a certain manner, I can just put this code in and not have to type this comment over and over again. Plus, when you have a lot of papers, it really helps out. So the last piece before we get into how Phrase Express works, and I'm going to do that in the open forum so I can create a couple of demos and show you how it works, as well as send you over to their website. But the main thing that you have to remember, when you're attempting to give quality feedback in less time, there's going to be some time on the front end. You're going to have to build your comments. And it's going to take you some time. I have comments that I've been building over the years. Once you have the database, and I have one for each course, I have my codes all start off with whatever the course is, whether it's Business 365 or BUS 600, whatever the case is. Build your comments ahead of time. That way you have them, and you can always tweak them and adjust them. That way if the curriculum changes, you have a base set of responses. Just make sure that you have those in place. Once you have those in place, you can freely adjust and adapt to whatever situation comes your way. So I want to talk to you a little bit about how Phrase Express works. Phrase Express is available at phraseexpress.com. So I'm going to do a couple of demos for you and then send you to their site. So I'm going to open the floor for final questions and demo just a little bit about Phrase Express. Here we go. Okay, so I saw a couple of questions in the chat, and I'll try and go down and answer them before we actually, I'll open up my screen and do a couple of more demos. One of the questions is, and it was from Alex, can it put comments inside of the paper comment box? Absolutely, and I'll show you that in just a second. Phrase Express works anywhere there's a dialog box or you can put your cursor. The one catch is, if it's, say for instance, a form that you're filling out that doesn't accept anything other than text, if you have something with a picture or some sort of graphic, It's not going to work there, but it'll work anywhere that graphics are accepted. And then in the places where only text is accepted, it will only allow you to place text. John asked, does it cost to use? The free version is absolutely free. There are other features that are enabled if you buy the paid version, but you don't need it to do the basic stuff that we're doing. There are a few other features. I don't need them. I don't ever use them. So I've been using the free version for the better part of 10 years. The next question is from, looks like Dr. Henham, and he's asking for part-timers, how do we gain a copy? You don't have to purchase it. Go to phraseexpress.com and you can just go and download, just check out the video. There's a lot of built-in features that are they're ultra cool. You can just check them out. It's a really cool program, and for being free, it really supplements what we're doing. What other questions? It's locally installed on your computer when you purchase it. It's a really small file, and it's basically kind of like an advanced version of a clipboard. If there are any nerdy folks like me out there, you get that. The clipboard is just where things go when you cut and paste. It's kind of like an advanced version of that. What other questions before I open up and share my screen and take other questions? Gail is saying, I believe you need a workaround if using the Edge browser. Works great with Chrome and Firefox. I lean toward Firefox. Chrome is my backup if anything goes wrong. I don't really use Edge, and I don't use a lot of Internet Explorer. The reason why I lean toward Firefox is because it has a built-in spell checker. That's why I do it. So whichever browser works for you, given the fact that there may be some issues with a couple of them. Diana Donovan, they're likely to sense that you're using professional use and ask for pay. I've been using it for 10 years, and no one's ever, it doesn't seem to be an issue for what you're using for. We're not publishing the work or doing anything like that, so I don't think there'll be an issue. What other questions? All right, so I'm going to share my screen and do a couple of more demos, and then I'll take some more questions. Okay, so the first thing that I want to bring up is Waypoint. Now, in Waypoint, I mentioned that you could use this for your summation comments. And that's how it works. I have my code pre-populated, and so my template for the grade is in there. I can go in and tweak and adjust or delete anything that I need. It really helps. It helps a lot with Waypoint. It works the same way in the Gradebook. The long and the short of it is this. If you're typing anything on a repetitive basis, which grades are repetitive, comments and papers are repetitive, all those things, including your signature on your email, you can put those within Phrase Express. And just to give you a little demo here, here's a couple more, but I'm going to use just a little one I send to people when they do something really cool to help me out in the organization. It does pictures as well. So it's really cool that you can utilize images when you use Phrase Express. So going back to Waypoint, I mentioned earlier, if you had a comment that you type on a regular basis, for instance, if this student had to type up their thesis, you can use Phrase Express or you can use Waypoint to put in the comments. Now, one of the issues I've run into is if I use the same comment in Waypoint as I do in Phrase Express, sometimes I get the codes mixed up. So, but you can use Phrase Express to do the entire comment, or you can use Waypoint. So when you start doing this, and I generally use Phrase Express in the summation box, I use Waypoint for the comments on the papers, because I don't know if you know this or not, but Waypoint has a couple really cool features where you can use your comments that you've created, or if you click here, you get a global list of comments that everyone else in the school is also utilizing. So they may have worded something different for thesis that you like. You can absorb that and put it in, or paste it directly into your library. We're kind of sidetracking with Waypoint, but it ties in exceptionally well with Phrase Express. Okay, I see I have a question here. Okay, so one of the questions I have from Jamal Ibrahim is that, does the verbiage distinguish between a 100 level course and a 300 level course in terms of requirements, feedback, and so on? Are you asking about my database of information? Is that what the question is? Oh, okay. I I teach both the graduate level and bachelor, so I have some that are graduate level and some that are undergrad level, but a lot of them are generalized. But once you get it, you can tweak it however you see fit. Some of them are very course specific. So you'll see some comments that are for business 661, business 600. Then I'll have some for business 365, 362, 433, and so on. They're labeled. And thank you for bringing that up, Ibrahim. I'm going to show you what the database inside Phrase Express kind of looks like. So in Phrase Express, and like I said, I've had this program for 10 years, so I have just an absolute ton of comments. And so you'll see here that this is for 660. This is just a general post that I put in the classroom. This is an iRoad response. Say, for instance, if turn it in is down for the instructor, I have a comment for that, so you can annotate that in the Waypoint summation box. One of the other things, pro tip, I'll show you what I do in the mornings. I'm an early bird. I get up early on Tuesday mornings and I start grading. One of the first things I do is I go through all of my papers and I have a code. It's hashtag OT. And that's for all my students that are on time. Okay, so what that does is it's a built-in comment into Phrase Express. It's already built in. I told it to highlight. It tells you the exact time that you make a post. So utilizing Phrase Express. So I go through and I mark all my papers so I know which ones are on time. So if I don't grade them all right then, I know which ones were late and which ones were on time because they have this mark. Now, Phrase Express has a lot of built-in features. If you go to the website, it will actually give you a demo of all the things that it does. And you'll see some of the pre-built comments, like words that are sometimes mistyped or misspelled, it automatically corrects those. You can put in anything you want. Now, that takes me over to, if you notice, all of my comments start with 2 hashtags. And the reason why I do that is because it's rare, at least for me, and we'll all find what works for us, that I ever hit 2 hashtags in a row. So for me, that's a good code. Anytime I hit hashtag, I know that I'm about to put in a code. That's just for you, it may be a $sign or, ABC, whatever, something. I try to use something I know I won't normally type. Okay, Stephanie, do I have any other questions in the discussion before I go a little bit more deeper into Phrase Express?
There is a few. One is, when copied into Phrase Express, does it copy plain text or does it keep the Word version format with extra spacing and margins?
I've had a little bit of both. Generally, what I do is I type my code into Word and it tends to keep the format. Every now and then, you'll get a situation where you might not get the hard return that you want. You might get the softer one. Sometimes you have the soft return and it gives you a hard one. Those are, for me, minor things that you can go in and tweak. And you can play with Phrase Express. When you go in, you can actually look at that and see how you have it set up. And if it's one way or the other, you can go in and change that. So for instance, this one, I can change between what I need. Given the power that it gives me, when I run into issues like that, I don't really, it can be irritating, but they're easy fixes.
And one other question, does Phrase Express need to be open for it to recognize that you're using it? Like, how does it know that you're wanting it to populate? Is it open in a different window or?
Phrase Express runs in the background. So it runs, you don't see it. There's no window for it. If you want to go into it, you have to specifically find it in your taskbar and go into it. It runs in the background. There's no place to go and it's not sitting on your desktop or open or anything like that. It's a real small program that runs in the memory. Like I said, it's kind of like an advanced clipboard. If you could go to your clipboard and just pull things off of it, it kind of works in that nature. So it's not going to take up a bunch of memory or slow down your machine or anything like that. Did that answer the question?
Yes, that's it for now.
Okay. All right. Perfect. All right. So to use Phrase Express, it's pretty easy. And I'll build a comment for you so you can see how it works. So what you want to do is you're going to go to your phrases in Phrase Express. Once you have the window open, you're going to click New Phrase. It's simple as that. Just make sure you keep everything in your phrase express folder so it doesn't get garbled or you have things all over the place. Okay, so I'm going to call this a test phrase, and simple as that. Okay, now what I want to do is create something that I remember. So in this instance, I'm going to call it hashtag test. In other instances, like for business 362, I would put hashtag BUS 362 week 1 WK1 or W1 assignment 1, like A1 or discussion 1, whatever the case, so that it makes sense to me. Everybody will have their own codes. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save this, close it. Our mark was hashtag test. Okay, that's it. Now, there's one other really cool thing with Phrase Express. You saw there, maybe you did or did not, I hit enter. With Phrase Express, there's another option that you can do. And the cool part behind that is this. After you put your code in, down here, there's a mark. It says execute after delimiter or execute immediately. If you put execute immediately, the cool thing is, whatever you type, you don't have to enter. It just goes. You can set it up to where you hit enter or where you don't. It's completely up to you. And you can set all those things to do whatever you need them to do, either automatically or after an enter. So this is a mark that I put in when I have a student that has an accommodation. I go through and I put that in all their discussions in the gradebook so that I know if they're late, I have a mark saying it's an accommodation. There's so many cool things that you can do with Phrase Express in addition to using them for grades. You can use them for, as I mentioned earlier, for your signature. There's so many cool things. It's kind of like a combination of Clipboard and the old version of Outlook that had quick parts. So it kind of combines those two things. It's a really powerful tool to use. It saves you keystrokes. It saves you minutes. It saves you headaches. I'll see if, let's do this one. I think that happens good. Some of my courses I haven't taught in a while. I'm going to different courses. I'll share something else with you. Let's do. So I can just put that code in instead of having to go hunt it down. That's the cool thing by it. You can have a list on the side. After a while, you'll memorize a lot of the things that you do, and it'll just come to you. So and that's what I type to get that. I go and tweak it. Anywhere a cursor fits, you can drop Phrase Express information in. And as long as there's no graphic, it works in pretty much every dialog box. And if there is a graphic, you just have to put it in a place where where graphics are accepted. What other questions do I have? And are there any other ideas or ways you think you can use Phrase Express you want to discuss? Because it's super cool. I know I'm kind of nerding out.
So there are some great comments in the Waypoint library with links to the Writing Center. Are they able to just copy those into Phrase Express?
Yes, Phrase Express lets you do hyperlinks. It lets you do pretty much anything that you want. So for instance, I can't remember the comment. Let me pull it up in Phrase Express because I want to show you. It actually does it'll let you do hyperlinks. And I'll answer this question from Brian in just a moment. The other thing that you can do with Phrase Express, if you can't remember a code, you can type in your folders and your type a search result and it'll pull up your files. So in this one right here, okay, so the code that I wanted to put in is actually bad bit. All right, so it actually lets you put in your links. You can do links, hyperlinks.
Does Phrase Express have table format or just text?
I think if you build a table, and I don't think I've really played with that, but we can actually do that real quick. Let's throw in a table. So I'm going to highlight and copy. I'm going to go back into Phrase Express. Brian, I haven't forgotten about you. I will get to your question in a second. So I'm going to go a new phrase again, keep it in the Phrase Express book. We'll call this table. Give it hashtag table. And I'm going to set it to automatically execute and save. The old Phrase Express had a save button. The new one doesn't. Just hit Control S or close it and it'll ask you to save. All right, so let's give it a test. Oh, it did not do that. Now there may be an issue. I may have a code in for table already, and that's a possibility. If you ever have an issue, check to see if you have two codes. I may have put table in there before, and that may have been the issue. Let's check it. Yes, so table exists there, and it did not take the table that I put in. There may be a spot, and I haven't played with that piece of it, where here you go. You can build your own table. So you set your rows. There you go. So now when we do table, let's go ahead and save this. That was a great question, by the way. Oh, I hit the wrong code. There it is. So it does give you a table. You have to play with it to get your parameters and everything, but it does have that option. So that's kind of cool. You may have to go into and fill it out and see if you get the data that you put in it. Did that help with that question?
Yes, he said cool.
Okay, perfect. All right.
I do have a few others when you have time.
Okay, so I want to answer Brian's question. He says he keeps all of his commonly used feedbacks and comments in Word. How's Phrase Express better? Brian, I'm not saying that it's better. I'm not here to degrade any other program. I'm just saying for me, rather than having to go to a Word document, find the comment, copy it, paste it, copy it, highlight, copy it, and bring it back, Phrase Express just has that built in. I can do the same thing with a couple of keystrokes. That's all I'm saying. It's not knocking any other technique or any way that anybody else is doing anything.
So I have a few about videos. When you're using animated graphics or videos, can you use Phrase Express to copy HTML code?
It will copy HTML code. I've never used it to try to capture a video, but if it captures a link to the video, which it does, that'll solve the problem. But Phrase Express does do, if I'm not mistaken, it does HTML code. I'm going to open up here and double check. Okay, so when you do your new phrase, I do believe there's a place for you. And I know I don't use it a lot myself, but I know there's a place to put in a code or a rich text format and all those things. Generally, it copies what you put into it. So you can toy with it and see. Like I said, I don't use it for HTML. I use it mainly for the gradebook, but I don't see why it couldn't be. A good place to check that out is on their website, because there are so many cool things that it does, including dates and times. It might be a new tool in your arsenal. It just might be. Next question.
One of them is kind of tying to videos. Kaltura allows for videos created there to be embedded in other documents. Does this program allow for the creation of videos to accompany the text?
Ooh, that's a good question. Off the top of my head, I don't know. I generally use it for Gradebook. Like I said, if the video is a link or if you have an embed code, it may. I don't want to say that it does for sure, because I've never played with that aspect of it. If whoever sent that message wants to set up a little session with me, and we can tweak around and play with that, and then once we get something, Stephanie, we can send out like a little 5-minute clip and say, hey, here's how you can do it if it's possible. I'll definitely do that. I'm game for that.
Okay, thank you. And then I just have one more.
Okay.
Has it ever made a mistake and put the wrong comment in the gradebook comment box and it was not realized until after the student read it? Is there any advice
There's a
to double check?
possibility. There's a possibility it could happen, but as the instructor, I'm looking to make sure, because I've done that. I've hit, like, say for instance, I have a code for my students in BUS 365. It's for a plane activity. If I hit that and it should be Brickalure or something like that, I usually catch it, but it's a possibility that, we're all human. We can make that mistake. There's not a check in place for that built in the phrase express other than the human component.
Okay, that's it for now.
Okay, what other questions can I help with or demo with before we end this session? And there's a trick to that. That's an open-ended question, like we're supposed to be leaving for our students.
Don't have anything in the chat.
Okay.
Other than thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. And like I said, if you send me an email, I'll send you my database. It'll be, I think it's .bas or something along those lines. It'll have all of my comments. And so you'll have to go through and tweak everything so that when you leave your comment, it doesn't say thank you, Dr. Moore, or something like that. But I'm here to help if you need me to. Just reach out to me. Thank you for the kind words, Connie and Deb. I do appreciate that. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Sorry for the slow little piece in the beginning, but we got it worked out. We got it working. And like I said, it's thank you very much for all the kind words, everyone. It's a blast to use. Once you get accustomed to using it, it's an absolute dynamite tool in your toolbox, and you'll find new things that it does. One of my favorites is putting in the dates for the grades. That is just it really helps. It really helps.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Moore. A lot of good information. And thank you so much for everybody for attending. Please complete the follow-up survey. It's been posted in the chat a few times. The recording will also be available in a few days, probably on the CETL YouTube channel, CETL website, Ask CETL, and then I will also send an email to all of the attendees with the recording in it and anything that Dr. Moore wants to add to that email. So thank you again and have a great day, everyone.